getting on YouTube at this moment. Anybody standing by is able to pick up what we're laying down. I'm Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions, meeting with the San Carlos Computer Club once again this Tuesday morning at 10 Arizona Sonora time, because San Carlos is really the time that matters. Good to see you guys. I'm afraid I've been overwhelmed with things over the last week, and I did not prepare much for today. I did find a couple of articles this morning I thought might be interesting to talk about. But once again, we're still virtual meetings until October, and I'm on the countdown. I think we've only got like 2 more meetings while I'm in Alaska, and then I'll be back in Phoenix. I won't be doing in-person meetings till October, and I won't be back in San Carlos until probably the 2nd or the 3rd week in September, because I need to do some work there in Arizona. Hello, Jester. You snuck in when I wasn't paying attention. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Well, if nothing else, we can report to Chester on our auction, which is now complete. And
yeah,
Cheryl,
give us an auction update, Bill.
No, Cheryl's job.
Cheryl, give us an auction update.
We have our money. Everything's cleared out. The granddaughter came to stay. We didn't know she was coming, and she arrived on Sunday and said she wanted to stay overnight and proceeded to give us heck for everything. There's no chair for me to sit in for watch the TV. How come there's no bedside table beside my bed? Everywhere she went, she said, "You sold what?"
That's awesome.
And what do you mean you're not going to be living in this house soon? You know, you can't go to a senior's home. Anyway, so she had a little bit of an emotional time.
Okay,
how old is she?
13.
13. Oh, that's the age for it.
I have an addendum to Cheryl's report. I had what I called a project bike. I got it free, and needed some so it needed to be put back together. Anyway, we were selling that, and somebody said, "Well, the person's out there to pick it up on the pickup day. There's a person out there to pick up that bike." And so I go out there, and I'm not really looking at the person. I'm asking, "So, what do you got to load this in? You know, like what kind of vehicle?" And all she said is Bill Thompson, and I'm Mandera, which is one of Sarah's best friends from when we lived in Hinton. It was one of my former students, and she's a motorcycle mechanic plus car mechanic, and she had bought this, and she was just overboard excited that she had bought it from us, you know. Then she also bought, when we brought Cheryl's dad's stuff home from his garage, we had an old, I think it was a Delco or something. It was one of those cabinets, is about 2 foot square, that has all of the old points and the, all the small electrical parts that company sold. And I figured, well, if somebody would buy it to put it in their man cave as a decoration, but she bought it, and she was happy because she fixes up old cars. That's what part of her business. And she spent the evening, I guess, going through this thing, just looking at all the little spare parts that are in there. Anyway, that's my report. She was overly enjoyed to have bought this stuff from us, and we were too. It's a nice place for it to go. And I told her when she gets it running, she's got to bring it back here so I can have a look at it at least.
Sounds like an interesting person.
Oh, Mandera is a unique character, and her dad was a fellow colleague of ours, and it's a small world, you know. But the land is looking bare because all of the farm equipment is off of the thing, and the tractors are gone, and everything out of the yard, and different groups of people coming, and they were told they had to pick up the stuff themselves. Well, they kind of assumed that we would have bobcats and stuff to help them put it on their trailers, and we didn't. So a few adventures of them trying to figure out how to get the stuff onto their trailers. But we thought they were going to have 2 days of pickup, but it was all one. So Wednesday morning, 10:45, these two ladies arrive, and they're so well organized. They got their little machine for the people to pay, and they got all the invoices ready to go. And people started coming at about 5 to 11, and about 7 o'clock the ladies left. But the last guy getting the tractor, he still had a couple of loads to make, so he came till about 9.
Were you pleased with the prices?
No.
Well.
But it's like you said, one thing that you thought was worth a lot, you didn't get what you wanted, and something else. So we had this silly tent trailer that we bought for $100. In it was all this camping supplies, and one of the things that was in it was an adder room. It was like a canvas thing that attached with poles to add a little bit of a outside room at the front of your tent trailer. That thing went for $250.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable, but then some of our antiques, like our wooden rockers that we paid to have upholstered and different things like that, didn't go for as much as what we thought. And so it kind of came out in the end. But
My father's curling rocks went for $200.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know I wasn't around when they picked them up. I wanted to talk to them, see what they were going to do with these curling rocks. But
How
they
many
came
were
from
there?
an era when a lot of curling rinks didn't have their own rocks. They couldn't afford them. So you brought your own. When you went to a bonspiel, you brought your own set of rocks in a nice little wooden box, and you set them down on the ice and used them.
That's like having your own bowling ball, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar. Very, very similar.
Yeah, nowadays they would have really fancy, specifically made rolling suitcases like they do for the bowling balls and the bowling teams.
But the problem is when they were at, when they weren't gone to bonspiels, my hometown curling rink used them. But they were all different weights. You could buy different weights of curling rocks in those days. So the ladies would buy rocks that were 15 pounds lighter or 20 pounds lighter than the men's rocks. There was one guy had the biggest set, and they always said if you could get a
big set of rocks, that dude.
They had a good set of rocks, but if you could get one of them sitting down there, the other those little the smaller ones that just bounce off it wouldn't move them hardly. The physics was in your favor if you had used those rocks.
Well, now is that regulation? Does it matter?
Well, and now they're all the same. The curling rinks all own their own sets. But it was in the era, post Depression. There wasn't a lot of money, so the farmers. My dad was one of them. Said, well, he'd buy a set, and he basically left them at the curling rink unless he was going into a bonspiel.
That's interesting.
So yeah, it'd be like leaving your own personal bowling ball at the bowling alley until you needed it to go to someplace else to be in the tournament.
And they don't charge you storage.
No, there's activity in the Stimson household.
Yeah, there's something going on in the kitchen there.
Well, coffee's being made.
Must be coffee time.
In the Keurig.
Mom, you have a report from the kitchen?
Yes, we have to empty the dishwasher.
Oh.
Nobody ever wants that job.
I do it all the time.
Well, get
Morning,
over
Pop.
here. We need you.
I absolutely hate living out of the dishwasher. Like lots of places, you would do the dishes and then you just take out the ones you need until it's empty, and then you fill it up again. And I hate doing that.
I have a friend. I agree with you, Bill. I have a friend who has 2 drawer dishwashers, and they sit on top of each other. And so she fills up one dishwasher, gets it going, and then she pulls the other one out and uses that all day long. And then that night she fills it up. And anyway, it's alternating clean. She says it works really well for her. I think it sounds like a great idea. Kind of costly on dishwashers, but sure seems like a good idea if there's only one or two of you. Those big meals, you know, you'd have to fill them both, but oh well. That's all I have to contribute. I'm going on silent so I can listen. Oops.
Sorry about that. I had a message come in from the solar panel guy, and I need to get back to that at some point. How's everybody doing? Nothing to report, nothing special, nothing that needs to be updated. Who'd we just lose? Somebody just popped off my screen. Judy just disappeared. We've got an issue. Yuya's gotten back to the house and is having issues with the water pump since after one of those storms. I think it's been since the dust storm when the power lines went out for everyone. But our electrician is saying that there's low amperage on our property, and he wants to blame the solar panels. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this. I've never heard of this, so I've just sent all that report over to Marco to see what he says about it. Nobody has any experience with that kind of thing. Well, we'll find out. I'll give you an update next week.
So how did San Carlos fare with the hurricane?
It just wet. I think they had flooding in downtown Guaymas. I don't think any of us are there right now except for Yuya, and she hasn't reported to me anything consequential. Yeah. I did see some video from downtown Guaymas that was flooding, but that's not uncommon just even with a rainstorm. So I don't know if that's... I guess I saw some flooding. It wasn't Guaymas, but it was... like 100 miles away. Can't remember now where it was. I remember thinking, oh, that's close, but not close enough to matter.
I would think Empalme would flood.
Yeah, I would suspect as well. But again, these areas, they have horrible infrastructure for water. So the smallest storm can cause flooding in major areas. They never seem to be able to get on top of it. I remember when I first got to San Carlos, the flooding in Guaymas was so persistent right there on the main drag. As soon as there was any storm, that main boulevard heading up to the Cerdan off the highway would go up to, knee level. And cars would just be driving through it. And that's how it was for years every time there was a storm. And then they had this major repair on the drenaje. And
2 and 3 foot curbs in Mexico.
Yeah.
I thought those were water lines they just put in. I didn't know if they were sewer and water or what they were doing down Cerdan last winter.
Well, and the repair I'm thinking of was so long ago. It was before I had children.
Oh, okay.
But it ended that regular generation of just every time it rained, it was flooded on that road. But now it still suffers from flooding at individual reasons. Sometimes it rains and it's no problem, but other times it's a catastrophe. So I don't know what brings that, but it seems to be a persistent problem in Guaymas. And in some place it's flooding. at any moment, if there's a rain, someplace in Guaymas it's flooding.
Yes, I am.
How are you doing, Judy? We didn't get to say hi to you. I saw you sneak in too.
I'm fine, thank you. It's hot here, but that's okay. It's like 93 or something with no air conditioning, so it's hot.
I hope you're not sitting in no air conditioning. That would be miserable.
I have no air conditioning.
Why do you have no air conditioning?
I live in Colorado.
Oh my gosh. What do you need air conditioning for there?
Yeah, because it's 94 degrees. Not right this second, but by afternoon it will be.
If you had a basement, that's where I would be.
I have a basement, but it's dark. I don't have a TV down there, and my signal on my Wi-Fi is not very good. So,
That all just sounds like poor planning.
well, I've lived in the house since 1982, so that's probably longer than you've been alive.
Oh, I appreciate that, but I was causing problems in '82. You can ask my mom.
She's shaking her head, yes.
Well, I don't know what else we got going on. Nobody's offering up any
Well,
topics. What do you got,
Remember
Judy?
last week when we talked about making sure that because my laptop was not syncing with my phone and my iPad? Well,
iCloud.
it's still not syncing. I changed some of the settings, and now I have quadruple on some of them, entries in my calendar on my MacBook, and can't get rid of those. And then I also I made a entry for my calendar on my MacBook, and it did not sync to my iPad or my iPhone. So it is ongoing, but that's something that I will deal with when I see you in person to deal with.
Okay. Well, on the Macintosh and in your iPhone, you should be able to see all the calendars that are popping up in that app.
I can.
And so the duplications that you've got, are they across different accounts or are they in the same account?
They're in the same account, but the duplicates are only on my MacBook. The duplicates are not on my phone or my iPad.
That is odd.
It's very odd. But I've had constant problems with the MacBook, not when I first got it, but after a year maybe, it started deleting all my messages, my emails after 30 days, even though it's not set to do that. And it doesn't do it on my other two platforms. And that's unfixable too. When I talk to Google, they say, well, we don't know, that's an Apple problem. And Apple says it's a Google problem. So,
Well,
yeah.
You know what you're describing sounds like you have your mail set up in your device as a pop mail account.
I changed all that too. I've done it both ways.
So the way the pop mail account works is you're pulling copies and you're telling the server what to do after you're done. So you pull a copy, and should you delete that on the server, or should you wait a specific period of time, or whether you should leave it on the server?
That's all been changed, and it doesn't matter. I deleted the pop account. I put the pop account back in. It doesn't work.
So your other option would be the IMAP account. And
I've got that too. It works fine on my iPad and my phone. It just doesn't hold the messages. It doesn't delete them off of my iPad and my phone. It only deletes it off the MacBook.
So the IMAP account is actually a synchronization with your email account.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever you're looking at email through IMAP, whether it's your device, you're in your hand, or your desktop, what you should be looking at is the emails and folders, the deleted items that are sitting on the server. And it should be giving you the same representation on all your devices.
Yes, it should, but it does not.
Yeah, okay.
I can see all the folders on my MacBook. I can see everything there, but after 30 days, they're gone.
Yeah, that sounds to me more like you've got another device out there checking email that's on pop, that's deleting emails after 30 days.
I have 3 devices.
And you're confident all 3 are on IMAP right now, and so
I don't know, but I'm not changing it after now. I have quadruple entries on my calendar on my MacBook. I'm not making any changes until I see your face.
All right, I'm happy to help you with it when I'm there in October. Just a note: the calendar issue you're having,
Yes.
should not be related to an email issue you're having. Those should be two
Well,
separate
the
areas
email
of
issue has been
configuration.
going on for several years.
Yeah.
The calendar just came about maybe a couple of months ago.
Yeah, and I wonder if it just has something to do with having the same entries in a calendar that's still reporting to you, even though you don't care about that calendar. Because you,
Well, but they're all supposed to default to my
Google account.
my Gmail email account. Yes.
Yeah, your Google account.
So there
And
shouldn't be.
maybe for conversations like this, it's better to refer to it as a Google account because
Okay.
we're not talking about email, we're talking about calendars, but it's all the same account.
It is.
Yeah.
Because when I type in, where do you want the default to be? It's my jrallwood@gmail.com. That's why I call it a Gmail account.
Yeah. And if that's in your device, what that means is when you go to create a new calendar entry, it will create it in the Google account.
It should.
Yeah, that's
But
when
it
you set
doesn't
a
on
default.
my MacBook. It
Yeah.
doesn't on my MacBook. I just did one yesterday and it did not go across to my other devices.
Yeah,
It's very weird.
it is very weird. I've got
So
a
anyway.
weird problem with my calendars that cause duplications in my device because I track both my personal calendar as well as the computer club's calendar, as well as the bed and breakfast's calendar, are all coming into my same personal device. I think there's another one in there somewhere as well. But there are things like the computer club meeting, which are scheduled both in my personal account and in my computer club account. Because it's the same meeting, I'm like an invite into that. On my device, it shows it duplicated. And for a long time, I was always trying to get rid of the duplication before I finally realized it was the exact same entry, just two different perspectives. And I can either turn off that perspective and never have it, or just deal with the fact that I want to see two different perspectives. I want to see my calendar from Computer Club, but I also want to see my personal calendar because that's where my work is and the events happening in my life. And so I just have to tolerate the duplication.
Well, I just stopped accepting anything from Computer Club because it was always duplicated.
Well, you don't have that problem because I'm the
I
Computer
did.
Club. No,
Oh,
you
I
don't
did.
because you don't have my problem.
No, but I had the problem of duplicate entries from Computer Club.
Right, but it would be a completely different problem.
Right. Hey, just to let you know, I got the weirdest notification that says my package, it's supposed to be from the USPS, but their address is numbers@qq.com. And it says your package has been put on hold due to an address issue. Please update.
Well, you know
So-
that's the iPhone I sent you that doesn't duplicate calendar entries. You've got to go pick it up.
Yeah, right.
They won't deliver it now.
At qq.com, that's you.
That's right. Yes, I hope you immediately toss that in the trash.
I haven't yet, but I actually have to block it before I toss it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if it actually works anymore, but you can flag it for junk mail on the
I
Macintosh
do
platform.
that too. It depends. If I block it, then I can't junk mail it. One or the other.
Mm.
Speaking of junk mail, I've had a thing with Google has started putting a whole bunch of stuff in junk mail. And it seems like, if I get some things and I decide, well, I'm not even going to open them, I'll just trash them because I'm not interested this week or whatever. So I trash them. And then from that point on, it will send it straight to junk instead of letting me decide, kind of thing. So I'm having to go back because I thought, well, how come I didn't get that notice, And so I go back and I look, and here's all this stuff in junk that I didn't tell it was junk. It just decided itself. So I've been having to keep an eye on it.
But you
Now-
can go in and say, move it to the inbox, actually drag it over, and then it won't be junk anymore.
I have to each one. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, you should be able to influence the next similar item by
Yeah.
going to the one in junk mail and saying this is not junk.
But
And by
then
saying it's
Google
not junk,
decides again that it is, like it just depends. Like, for example, I
yeah.
get bank notices every time I do anything. And some of them I don't open because I knew what was going on and I knew what it was. So I'll just delete it. So if I do that for a couple of days, it decides all of them are going to junk. And then I tell it, no, I still want those notifications in my inbox. And it does it for a couple of days. And then we're back again. So I don't know. Google, it just, I hate it having a mind of its own it's probably smarter than mine, but I still don't like it.
Is that address that it comes from in your address book?
Is that the same as contacts? I
Yes.
don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
'cause-
and that's a really good thought, Judy. that Google uses all that information. It uses your contact list to determine whether something's junk mail or not. Just by adding that address to your contacts would probably eliminate the problem. And then what's a little confusing about contacts on Google is that you have a contact list made up of contacts you've saved, and then it generates a contact list. This is in the web, when you're on the website, of correspondence contacts. And so those are contacts that are appearing under contacts, but only because you have exchanged emails with them, not necessarily that you have saved their data. I don't know. Is that clear, or did I muddle that?
Can you say that again?
Well, there is a list of contacts in contacts that aren't necessarily your contacts. Now that muddled it.
And are we talking Google contacts or are we talking telephone contacts or?
Yeah, we're talking Google contacts. So here's an example. I'm in contacts for the computer club right now. And these are all saved in contacts. I've got 42 saved contacts. But this other contacts, these are, if it comes up, these are all just interactions. These are all, they're not necessarily they're not saved details about people. These are contacts that the account is interacted with, and so there's email in my email account.
Where is that?
This is under contacts.
So I'm on my Gmail, and up in the corner, because I'm on Google Chrome, I've got the matrix, and one of them in the matrix is contacts.
Oh.
So I opened it, and it opened in a new browser or a new window, and I'm looking at it, and it's got contacts, frequent, other. And on the other, I think is where Scott's saying.
I never look at my emails through Google Chrome. I use the app that's built into my devices.
The Google Mail?
No.
You never open Gmail app?
No, I use it through my devices on my, it's mail as run by Apple.
Yeah, I use Mail, and I've got two addresses that I look at. I can look at all inboxes, or I can look at my Gmail, or I can look at my Apple. And so there's two mails, and they come into Mail, the mail thing.
But I never go onto gmail.com and look at my contacts.
One frustration, I do things like Judy does. I seldom go into it, but I find I have to go into it on my other accounts, because on my devices, I can only have one default. And so when I create a contact, it's only going to that one account. So say I need a new contact under a specific account. Like I want to add a new contact to the computer club's list of contacts. Then I've got to go into Gmail, go into Google, and go under contacts under the computer club to add it. I can't do it from my phone. I'd have
What I was about to say is the next category down is fix and manage. And the first thing on it is merge and fix. So I'm about to merge and fix my duplicate contacts, and hopefully that'll solve it if I do it online at Gmail. contacts.google.com/other. So that's why I went into it.
I think that's
I
a
don't
great
usually
feature.
do this, but
I think it's a great way to clean up your contacts. Is
merge and fix.
You can also do an export, which I would always recommend exporting your contacts before you change anything, just so you don't accidentally wipe out everything. So I would
I would
export
be
them to
really scared
a CSV file.
to merge my contacts through Google.
And
It would
then
scare-
what I do a lot of is I do cleanups of contact lists on my accounts. Like I'll go to Microsoft and do it. I'll go to my other Google accounts and do it. And then I'll wipe out what's on my device and I'll do a resync of those contacts. Yes.
Well, for example,
Judy's had too many bad experiences to want to get into any of that.
Well,
No.
it tells me there are 12 accounts
Oh,
that they are suggesting that I merge and fix. And each one of them, it says I can push here and add all the details that they're thinking of.
oh,
Or the contact to modify is listed and what the detail to add is, like it's an email address. So I get to decide, dismiss or add on each of them. So it's not it's a one-shot deal fix all. It's you can go and decide yourself.
Right.
but there's only 12.
In my
In
situation.
your case.
Yes.
Don't you think that that's kind of odd with all your contacts, that there's only 12 duplicates?
Merge and fix 12. It says I have 31 contacts, so I'm going back to look at what that is too. But
what it has to do is it has to find similar data, so similar that it realizes that these could be the same contact. It doesn't have to be all that bright. Though everything's getting more AI-ish, maybe it will be brighter in the future. But I think it's easier to manage my contacts. This is my personal, you don't have to do what I do. I find it easier to manage my contacts, major changes, get rid of duplications, all in my service provider's system. So I don't do a lot of that on my mobile device. I might update some information, but when it comes to doing mass cleanups like you're doing there, you're merging 12 items. That isn't something I would try to accomplish on my phone. I would always go to a website to do that. Go to Google Contacts to deal with it. I use Google as my main contact list. But I do like to keep contacts separate because I use an account for the bed and breakfast. Anything that's bed and breakfast related, I like to keep it in that contact list. And my only frustration is being able to update it on the fly. I mean, I can update it on the fly if it's in there, but I can't just add a contact on the fly. And I could if I go into settings and I change my default and then I come back to what I'm doing and then I add the contact, but then I got to go back to settings and switch the default back so that I don't forget and start putting personal stuff into the bed and breakfast stuff or bed and breakfast stuff into the computer club stuff. And so that's not the right workflow, is it? That's wrong. that's just wrong.
It's really makes it more difficult that you can't select from whatever device you're on. You cannot select where you want that contact to appear.
Well, and that's why when we were talking about contacts before on the iDevices, I'm like, don't synchronize any of these other accounts. Pick one account. Make that the truth. That's the one that matters. And that's the only contacts you should have syncing. And I'm describing problems because I don't follow those rules because I want to have the bed and breakfast in my hand. But I don't want them mixed up with my personal stuff.
But it seems to me I've seen part of a contact when you're adding a contact, and it says, now I may be making this up, but it says where you want to add that contact.
No,
I'm making it up then.
I'm trying to remember. There is a linking that can happen.
That's what yes, that's what I'm thinking about. Sorry.
And I find that very convoluted because I think that when you've linked to them, you're not actually updating them all. When you update, you're updating your default contact, but they're still linked. So in your device, you still see all that information. If you follow what I mean, like say for example, I've got mom listed in the bed and breakfast and in my personal contacts, and they're linked together. So anything I've got under bed and breakfast is listed with what I've got under my personal contact. And then I go to make a change. I think that change only occurs in the default personal contact. It is not reflected in the bed and breakfast contact. But because it's linked, I'm not aware of it because my device is linked those. See, it's just a can of worms. That's the reason I'm like, don't do what I do. Don't put all these different, because you don't use them. Normal people don't use a dozen different contact databases. Normal people pick one and use that as their go-to truth. And that's what I recommend to make it less complicated, is just pick one, like your Gmail account. Or if you're a total Apple person, it can be iCloud. If you're a Microsoft person, it can be Microsoft services. But pick one, and that's where your contacts always sync. And you should, because this syncing, I mean, you can have your own arguments about personal privacy and security and all that. That's a whole different discussion. But the idea that your contacts are syncable so that you can stick them in another device very easily makes it easy for you to lose your phone, makes it easy for your device to break without it breaking your life, without you having to put all this stuff in again, which is something no one should have to do at this point. After all these years, we've all got these huge lists of contacts and prior history with those. Nobody should be left with, where's my address book, and typing in phone numbers again.
All those secret numbers that you can bypass the push one for this and push two for that and da 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 da.
You've got all that in your contact list?
It would be horrible to lose those things, yes.
Yes. Well, I just saw a flash for 14 minutes. I saw 15 and then 14. I don't know why it would be. Maybe because I didn't cancel it, so it switched. Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Now it's 13. We're on a countdown for this meeting to end. I didn't bring any deep stuff. There's this really interesting article in Wired that if you guys don't have it in front of you, copy. I will paste it into our chat. The talk of, as climate change happens, the items that are given to workers in extreme heat, I just thought was interesting. A whole set of wardrobe to combat the heat. If you're a picker or a construction worker, if you're out there having to do pesticides, things of that nature. They tell the story of a worker that has a business doing fumigation in Arizona, and how many days above 110 they've been out in the sun doing their job. And they just talk about these vests and these wardrobes that are put together using different agents to cool the body, and how this is the new technology we're going to start seeing. And I just thought, since it was there, you know how, if you've ever read a Wired article, it goes a lot deeper than it needs to. I mean, this concept's pretty straightforward. People are wearing vests with ice in them, keep themselves cold. There are a couple of monkey suits that have tubing that go through it, There's actually an interesting story in this article talking about one of the developers is a furry. This is what I like about Wired, and how his first clientele for these kinds of cooling systems was him and his friends wearing furry suits to go socialize and getting too hot. And so what he's designed is a suit that fits slimly to your body with tubes that run across it, and the tubes bring the cooling, so you can sit, dressed as a chickmunk hitting on a fox at a Las Vegas convention.
These guys should be reading Dune.
Yeah, no, Dune, slightly similar concept, but the Dune suits are very interesting. How they collect moisture from your body and recycle it.
Reminds me of the railroad workers in the old days contacting the boss saying it's 110 in the shade. And the boss says, "What are you doing in the shade?"
You're right. That was kind of my comment when Judy said without air conditioning. I'm like, you're without air conditioning. I'm in Colorado. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. If it was 90 degrees here, we'd be without air conditioning complaining too. Because we have no air conditioning. Air conditioning in Alaska is opening the window.
Well, it used to be that way in Alberta, but for the last 2 summers, last summer, I guess, we bought a little air conditioner thing that heats it's space air conditioner. It doesn't heat, cools the space, goes in the window, but it's not a window jammer. Anyways, but opening the windows in these smoke-filled days is not recommended. So
wow, that's interesting. What kind of, are you guys using any technology to keep yourselves cool and smoke free?
Close the windows and turn the air conditioner that we bought last summer on. But
is there any concerns about running the air conditioner with? Well, I guess you've got mini splits. That's what I'm thinking.
It's sort of like a mini split. It's just a portable. Bill, explain it.
It's not a window jammer like where you hang in the window, but it's a air conditioning unit that vents out through the window and brings air in.
It does bring air in.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. It has to. But it.
So do you have to worry about smoke being brought in?
We don't. There's only been a couple days where they use a smoke index. I don't know if it's universal, but where we've been close to 10, which is not recommended to be outside doing anything strenuous.
Right.
But normally, you can smell the smoke inside the house once in a while. You go outside and you can smell it a little bit more. But we don't have too much strenuous exercise that we do outside anymore.
Well, I was thinking, if you guys remember from COVID, we all learned that the mini splits were a contributor to the problem of infection because they don't bring fresh air from outside in. They just recirculate the air inside the room, kind of like a refrigerator. All the heat is dissipated on the outside of your house, but inside there is no fresh air. It's just recirculating and recooling that air as it circulates through the house. Whereas the window unit air conditioners were thought to be safer in terms of infection during COVID because it was actually bringing fresh air in to cool. And go ahead.
So
Judy.
my mini split, even when it's on fan, does not have external air.
That's right.
No.
Huh.
That's right.
I never knew that.
Yeah, it's like having a fan with a cooler in front of it, but it doesn't bring any air from outside in.
Of course, I normally have several windows open, so whatever.
Which would probably be beneficial during wildfire season to have a mini split.
Yes.
Because you could have your own air purifier inside your house, and you could probably stay cool and keep your environment pretty clean. I mean, all things relative. Of course, you don't want to have wildfires. I mean,
Well,
but
Cheryl, if you have low humidity, you could use a swamp cooler, whereas in San Carlos, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
We used to be able to use those in Colorado. However, the humidity just keeps inching up higher and higher. Nothing compared to Mexico, but it's still high.
I
For
remember
here.
years ago, I ran into a situation where they were using a swamp cooler in Mexico, and I felt like it was pointless. It's like, this isn't cool. And it's like, oh yeah, it is. It's like 90 outside. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like 87 in here.
Yeah.
So it's like, this isn't helping. Well, I was trying to go through tech news this morning, and I sure did not find much interesting, or at least from my perspective, or from our perspective, anything
So Scott,
really that
I shared
interesting.
with you that little thing that was shared. It was actually on George's Viva bulletin board. Citibank dot, whatever, the URL looks correct. And what this thing
Oh,
said
yeah.
was that you have to look at the A, and you will tell the difference between the font that's used, and one is actual and one is not. And
Keep talking. I'm going to bring it up. That's a great
yeah,
thing to bring up.
it was really weird, and I have no idea if there's any truth to it. So that's what I wanted you to
Oh, it's
debunk it.
totally true. Totally true.
It's
So the thing is, why would you click on a link that you got through the
Did you
mail
see the
or
picture?
anywhere anyway?
Did you see the picture?
Well, the thing is, it looks like something that you always go to, citibank.com, whatever. I thought citibank.com would be citibank.com. But what it's saying is that sometimes the A is a
Right.
different.
All
It's
right,
the
well-
Russian A as opposed to our type of A.
That's
But
right. If you're
again,
looking at my screen, you can see the example in
Yeah.
a picture here. It's
But my thing is, why would you ever click on that link? That's the bottom line. If you want to go to Citibank, you type it in yourself, right?
well, I think really what we're doing here is we're showing how easily your eye can be manipulated. And it doesn't matter what link you might be going to. Like, sure, you can have those rules for Citibank, but I mean, do you have that rule for Yahoo, or do you have that rule for I don't know, Instagram? Or I mean, like, you're not typing all these. We live in a world where people type into a Google search engine and then click on the result. They
Yeah.
don't even bother to type their own address.
But that's a different thing entirely. This is coming from an email or something.
No, this is coming from anywhere you stumble across it.
Right. It could be
So
a
it
Google
could be in a
search.
discussion group. It could be across the chat. It could be in an email. It could be on a web page. It could nefariously be the results in a search engine.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah,
think it would be-
absolutely.
You start typing it, and you know how it fills it in the rest of it.
Mhm.
And I would just assume that this is the correct one. Like I often start typing my own, and then there it is, and I go to it, and sometimes they don't work. So,
Well,
but this could be why.
The A is a perfect example too, because
Yeah.
we would accept either style as being correct. Our eyes would not be triggered. We would just immediately click on whatever it was, because of course that's the way you write an A.
So this is an actual thing that, like, I don't know,
Absolutely.
hackers or somebody is doing this. They're using the same typing that you would use, but it's a different font.
Yeah, they're using it. Well, it's not a font. I mean, it is a font, but it's another ASCII character. It's what's accepted it's literally a different letter. It's not an A. A different font would be an A with a different style. So in the end, it's always an A. But in this case, it is absolutely not an A. It is a letter in a different language that's an internationally accepted character. So it is, by adding that, it is completely a different thing. And so that thing can be linked anywhere on the internet. And what they've done is they've just tricked your eye into thinking it's what you want to click on. I
But
would be
how likely
completely.
do you think it is that if I'm on I don't use Google as a search engine, but if I'm on a search engine and I type in Citibank, how likely do you think it is that it's going to pop up with
This Citibank? I don't think it's very likely at all because
No,
it's
see, I don't
Citibank.
either.
Yeah, because it's Citibank. And they
Right,
have a vested interest in making sure their users don't get duped. But
right.
what if it's Cheryl's auction site,
Yeah.
right? And they're looking for the auction, and one of these weird addresses comes up that looks correct, and they click
Yeah.
on it, and they're looking at her auction, and all they have to do is give their personal information to make a bid, and it collects it, and it looks like it's exactly the same auction site, and then
Our
all of a
call
sudden,
is
what? I gotta disconnect and reconnect.
Back again.
uh-huh.
There we
He's
go.
back.
In case you're wondering, Bill won.
My whole screen is different today. It's like I have to actually search for the little lines across the bottom that tell me I can mute and stuff. And then it also, when I go to a different thing, like if I'm playing a game and I go there, it's now showing up in the corner as still active, and that's all new this time. So
I
interesting.
wonder if we upgraded. Did we upgrade our systems since the last? I don't know
I-
because I noticed it's been doing that too. Like right now, I'm
Yeah.
just the two of us up in
Yeah.
the corner, and then
Oh.
if I go back to the Google Meet thing, then it comes up in the big screen. But yeah, it's a little different on our
Maybe
laptops.
the Meet thing updated, because I don't think I've had an update on my iPad or my phone.
Or your
Yeah.
Chrome browser might have updated. That might have affected something.
I'm not in a Chrome browser.
Oh, well then. What browser do you use? Are you using Safari?
Sometimes. Depends on how angry Safari makes me.
So
I use Firefox more often than Safari.
Firefox. Well, that's supposed to be exciting. I was listening to some folks talking about how Firefox is going to get accepted. It'll probably be one of the first apps in the Apple Store that will allow its own web browser. And they have to do it because of European Union law, that they're having to be compliant with their regulations by allowing these apps to use a different web browser in their store. So it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen. You're going to be able to use Firefox, and it won't be Apple WebKit. It will be the Mozilla engine.
I actually like Firefox much better than Safari. Maybe it's because I use it more, but I do like it better.
Yeah,
I like that it's constantly updating, and
Yeah, Judy, everything's constantly updating. What I like about it consistently is it's a different platform. So like right now, well, we've got 3 web platforms, whereas before we had dozens. We've got Firefox with its Mozilla engine. We've got Chrome with the Chrome engine, and what that is Chrome is Chromium, it's Opera, it's Microsoft Edge, It's all these different browsers. Brave, they're all based on the same engine. So again, we've got Mozilla, Firefox, Chrome, everything else, and then we've got WebKit, which is Apple. Those are the three platforms we have for doing web technologies right now, as far as web browsers go.
I find Chrome is really helpful if I'm reading articles that are printed in a foreign language first, and because it auto translates, and I can't seem to get Safari to ever do that reliably.
Well, and you might find that one Chrome engine browser works better for that particular activity than another. Like you might have a really good experience, and I'm not saying this is the case, but it could be that you have a really good experience on Chrome,
Right.
and you try and do that on Edge, and it's not the same experience, even though it's the same engine.
But if I'm trying to access a site, for example, my utilities here, I cannot access it from Mexico, but if I use Edge, I can. So
one of the things that I really appreciate about the Opera browser is they have a toolbar down the side, and I can be logged into Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Twitter, Telegram, all in this sidebar.
Oh.
And so when I'm screwing around with my friends, I like to use Opera because they're just a button click away, and I do my surfing in Opera, and I copy and paste photos and jokes and stuff right over to that messenger instead of using a separate messaging program. And to me, that's a good example of how it's Chrome, it's a Chrome engine, but Opera has attached all these different things to it that I value. And so I use it under those circumstances.
So WhatsApp, every time I go onto WhatsApp, if I'm not on my phone, if I'm on somewhere else, I have to actually allow it.
Yes, yeah, you do.
Oh, you still have to do
that? Yeah,
that?
it's called WhatsApp for the web.
Yeah.
And you have to authorize, in fact, it's not just the device, especially if it's a desktop, it's the browser. So you would authorize your WhatsApp app or your Opera app, and then it will lose authorization from time to time, so you have to come back and do it again.
That's why WhatsApp is really hard to use anywhere other than on my phone, because it's always gone, and I always have to have my phone anyway to authorize.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it on the desktop, and so whenever it's not working, I just grab it and authorize it, and away I go. I use a number of different computers, and so each individual computer has its own set of apps and browsers, and each time it's unique, it has to be authorized again. But that convenience is still, the inconvenience of having to reauthorize doesn't compare to the convenience of having it working on the platform I'm working on. And it's really just an example of how they're differentiating each other from, even though they're using the Chrome engine, there's features out there that you get from one browser versus another. I tend to think that if you're using services like Google, we talk about Google a lot, I think it makes sense to access Google services with Google Chrome. Everything that Google is providing should have been provided with the intention that it would be run in Chrome. Of course, they're open standards, so it should run in other places. But the first thing they would have tested it on was Chrome. Any special hooks into services, they will have known about in Chrome. So to me, if you're going to do Gmail, if you're going to do Google Photos, if you're going to do Google Docs, it all makes sense to just use Chrome for that. Whereas I take the same approach for Microsoft services. If you're going to use Microsoft services, maybe you should be doing it in Edge for the exact same reasons. They're building Outlook to present correctly in Edge first. You can do it in Safari, and you can do it in Chrome, you can do it in Opera or Firefox, but the browser of record for Microsoft is Edge. And so it makes sense that you would tie those services to that browser, if that makes sense to you folks. Same with Safari. If you're doing iCloud stuff, it makes sense to open it in Safari. They've got a very beautiful now email interface to the iCloud.com email account, which you can also use for other accounts. They've got a beautiful interface for contacts and for tracking your devices and things of that nature. And it all looks and works just a bit better when you do it through a Safari browser, because it was intended. That was the browser record for Apple stuff. Just my little 2 cents on such a thing. I think this is a genuine concern that we should all be thinking about. And I like Judy's approach of you should always be typing the address into your address browser. But the truth is people just don't function like that. So this is something to really be thinking about when you're being handed addresses. Think about where the source is coming from, whether that's reliable. You know, you think about all these Facebook frauds where they've gotten a hold of somebody's account, or they've created an account that looks exactly like somebody. They're trying to befriend you, or they're already sending you a text message and they're going, hey, I saw you on this website. This just makes even that more complicated, because they're just a moment away. They're just a hair away from convincing you that they are who they say they are. And now they're handing you a link to something important to you. They figured out whatever that important thing is. And now you're looking at it and it reads reasonable, and so you're following it. All these things we have to keep in mind. Judy's waving her hand.
See you next week.
You're out of here? You don't even have a recommendation for the end?
Gosh, I've been having a real hard time. Outlander is done.
Aw.
Stars sucked me into renewing my $5.99 subscription for $1.99 for 3 months. So maybe for $1.99 I can find something to watch. But I just finished one called Rough Diamond. It was about the Diamond District in Amsterdam, I guess. Yeah. That was a series. It was just okay.
It was just okay.
Just okay.
Barely worth mentioning.
Well, it was okay. You know, it was like interesting because it's all about the Jewish culture, and that part was interesting for me. So,
Did it get into blood diamonds, or is it completely another direction?
they weren't really blood diamonds, but they had the mob involved.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Well, I'll add it to the list. I hadn't even heard about it till today.
It just came out not too long ago, I guess. So it was all right.
Anybody watch the Johnny Depp Amber Heard stuff on Netflix that just came out?
No. I think Cheryl's speaking, but no, nothing's coming out.
That's because I'm muted. I'm wondering why you guys aren't listening. Anyways, okay, so Stars might be the one where I've been watching The Lincoln Lawyer, not the movie, but the series. And that's okay. And then
I love it.
yeah, and then the other detective one is is it Bosch? And it's based on a James Connolly, I think it is, novels kind of stuff, and I can do other things while I'm watching it, but you know, it's kind of interesting, the cases that he gets into, crooked cops and different things like that. But yeah, I've been enjoying that series.
Cheryl, that series at one point on the internet was declared the best show no one watches.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It gets accredited with great production value, good acting, very interesting stories, and I think it's on Amazon Prime, and hardly anybody has ever seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, Sandy did it, but yeah, no, but that one's kind of interesting. But you know what? We got sucked in again. I don't know. Granddaughter's here, and we're going through the Prime and stuff, and we find The Spy, and it's Melissa McCarthy, and it is just a wreck of a movie, and you get sucked in and you keep watching it, and it's just so bad. And but you
It's
just
watching a train wreck.
you just can't leave it, and the swearing and everything was a little bit much. And at one point, Amber, our 13-year-old granddaughter, said something about Veronica, the 10-year-old, would like this. And I said, honey, I think it's got a little too much swearing in it for what we could do it with her. Because it was a little bit raunchy there at points. But then we were watching Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh my God, that's a long movie, but it's great. It's the third one in the series, and I love the music and the background and the characters and the jokes. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good
they
one for kids.
their soundtrack is really awesome.
Oh, soundtrack's great.
I came across the soundtrack of the first album on YouTube. You can listen to the entire Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack on YouTube.
I think they should play it at their racetrack when they're doing their BMX bike racing. They always have music on, and sometimes it's really dumb, but I think the whole Galaxy one would be great.
Well, I brought silly recommendations with me this time.
Your mother is waving at you.
Oh, what do you got, Mom?
Well, we just finished, I think it's called Painkiller, and it's about
yes.
Chris Shackley. If you haven't seen that, that's also a limited edition. It was a strange presentation, and yet it certainly did get its point across. I think Shackley was a really weird guy if the actor interpreted him correctly.
Sacklers, the
Shackley.
Sacklers.
What did I say?
You keep saying Shackley, but it's Sacklers. Sacklers, like a sack of cats.
Yeah, Sackler's, he was an extremely strange character, but they kind of in the story explained how he got to be where he was, but yeah, you're right, the filming of it when he's talking to different characters that aren't there, and it's rather interesting, but the whole story with the pharmaceutical companies and the Oxycontin, and oh my goodness, it was hard to watch. I binged it one night till all hours of the morning, and not good.
What was shocking is that every day today, 40 people die from opioid overdose. Today, 40 people every day die. That could be worldwide or statewide. They didn't make a definite identification as to where these people are dying. But that's remarkable to me that in this late day that we have that going on.
I'm hoping that number, is that referring to opioid use regardless of whether it's prescription drugs, or is that prescription drugs?
I think it was just from opioid. They didn't qualify it as to whether it was legal use or not.
I'd actually think, I would imagine that number's actually higher when you bring heroin into it.
That could be one state, or in our situation, British Columbia and Alberta are known for the most deaths due to the opiate crisis. And British Columbia, Vancouver Central, the city alone gets numbers of deaths every day. And they're overdoses, and it doesn't matter if they're prescribed or they're not. People get addicted to it, and they can't do anything with it. It is an extremely, extremely awful med.
Yes, and they want to give it to me in the hospital. I told them, and they said, why? I said, because I turn inside out scratching. So do you want me to scratch all of these wounds you've put on my body here?
Yeah.
So they decided, no, I was right. They shouldn't give me that one. That and morphine I don't do well on, so they gave me something else.
Mom, I want to update your number. Google says that more than 100 people die every day from opioid overdose in the United States.
In the United States. And then if you punch in for the statistics for Canada, I'm sure we're there too, and it's awful.
Well,
So-
I think it was really enlightening in that show where she's talking to the attorney general and he's just, show me the crime. You have to bring me the crime
Right.
so that we can, and everybody that's watching the show can see the crime,
Yeah.
but it's got to be illegal for them to do anything about it. And I thought that was just it was poignant that it's like, yeah, what are you going to get them on? You've made all these things legal, so they're not doing anything illegal. Even though we know no one should be behaving like this, they've made sure this kind of behavior is legal. You are at 20 deaths per day. Maybe
20
it's different
deaths
in
in
Canada. As of
All of Canada?
2022, a total of 7,328 apparent opioid toxicity deaths occurred in 2022.
Well,
This is an
if we're at
average of 20 deaths per day.
If we're at 20, then our death rate is double yours because our population is always 1/10 of yours. Everything should be 1/10. And so statistically, we should be 10 deaths a day and we're 20. So we're killing them off faster. If that means.
Yeah, it is, because if what you're saying is true, you're 1/5 of what the United States is
You're
doing, not 1/10.
No,
Yeah,
100.
Anytime you see a statistic for the states, for the United States, you can almost guarantee that we're 1/10 of that, whatever that number is. So
Okay.
our population is 1/10 of yours.
So Google is saying that you're 1/5 in this case.
Yeah.
So you're killing them faster than normal.
Well, we're better at something, aren't we?
Yeah. That and saying you're sorry.
That was the joke I saw the other day, that one of these days Canada is going to invade the States and take it over, and you're going to be sorry.
I thought that was Mexico.
No, Mexico's got a different plan. They're just breeding them out.
I'm thinking Mexico could have several of the southern states. What do you think?
You mean you give them back? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah, you give them back is right.
Yeah.
You
There's one big one down there.
I mean,
Don't
according to
pollute
Putin's logic, they
Mexico.
belong to Mexico.
No,
Right.
don't pollute Mexico with
Yeah.
the southern states. No.
Don't ruin my paradise, please.
Any country that says that a former president, even if he's in prison, can continue to be a current president, there's something really wrong with that picture.
Well, don't you find it?
That is my only statement for this week that's political, but I stand by it 100%.
Well, he's only got 91 indictments against him. Come on.
I know.
If it were 100, you would worry, but it's only 99, right?
But if
We're
he
not
goes to
you're not at
prison, he
100.
can still serve as president.
What do you think of
That's
being
absurd.
able to be elected president when you're in a position where you're not, like, it might be illegal for him to vote for himself?
Is it illegal for him to pardon himself?
Right.
That's
He's going to force that issue if he gets elected. He's going to we're going to have to come down on some side of an issue that no one is. How embarrassing. No one's ever
How
pushed that
embarrassing.
issue. We've never
the
had to.
paragon of democracy for the world.
Yeah.
Are we really?
Yeah. No.
I'm sorry. That's it for me. It just annoys me to death. I just cannot believe this.
Well, let's get back to wrapping up this meeting. Do we have any other recommendations?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
Paul,
good.
what do you want to
I
add to
got
our
dropped
list?
into watching Suits on,
Suits.
Fun.
and I enjoyed. I watched 2 seasons. You know, I thought, oh, well, this is a nice little story. And then I looked. There's 8 seasons.
Why is it on my phone?
Right. It won't end. It's forever.
I don't know if we mentioned this last year, but we've started watching Tulsa King, which is Sylvester Stallone, which is a pretty funny set.
Bill, you're talking on top of Paul.
I'm sorry.
Were you done there, Paul?
Well,
Oh,
I
you're
was just
muted
saying
now.
that they must lose some characters that I really liked during 8 years. So I guess the Duchess will be gone pretty soon here.
I don't know anything about Suits.
Well, the woman that married the royalty,
Angela. No, what's her name? I can't remember her name now.
Markle, Marla Markle.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, they married the prince that now lives in California.
Yeah.
Oh, the Duchess, right?
She's
Yeah, she
Megan.
was on Suits. She's
Megan,
pretty
that's
good
the
on
name.
that show, I thought.
Yeah, I forgot that she was on that. I knew that I'd seen her in something, but you're right, it was Suits.
Yeah.
I think she was in there on most of the seasons.
I don't.
Not
I mean,
to spoilers.
it's 8 seasons and still producing, I guess.
Okay, I have one last thing. You want to see what Scott's going to be wearing this winter? I am making it was going to be for me, but it's turning out so cool. I think he needs
Oh,
a hat.
that's beautiful.
So he'll have to figure out how to make this work around it. It's not done yet, of course. It's got to get the top on it, which will be longer. But just thought you might like to know what you're going to be seeing this winter. Sometimes.
I'll be appearing on screen in one of Mom's latest creations.
Not many made this summer. In fact, none. This is the only one for him. Yeah, my fingers did not feel like knitting for most of the summer, so there.
So, Sandy, will you and, oh my goodness.
Terry?
Thank you, Terry, be coming down to San Carlos this winter?
I think not. I think we will get to Arizona for a little bit, but we're going to have our Christmas in Pine Top. So the kids will all come up so we can go hopefully get some snow and they can do some snowboarding or skiing. They're kind of amateurs at it now, and I think they would like to continue to learn.
You're talking about the grandkids, my kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
my granddaughters.
Cool.
I hope so.
Yeah, we hope so too.
But that's all. But we won't be driving down this year.
Okay.
Too much this year. Just
This
too
has
much.
been a loaded year. Yep, it sure has.
Well,
So,
guys,
we'll see you in club.
that's
We shall see
right.
you.
We
Yeah.
will continue to do virtual meetings even after we go in person when I'm back in October. And the next meeting is a definite, but I think I'm going to reserve to decide whether we're meeting the following meeting or not. It's actually on the 5th, and it's right in the midst. I will be leaving here on the 7th, so I may not, like I'm going to be able to do a meeting. I'm not talking about the next one. I'm talking about the one after that.
The one in September. Holy poop. It's September in 2 weeks.
Can you believe that?
Holy poop is right.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for it either, and I'm just hedging my bets. I'm just making sure everybody's up to date.
We're
Knows
just
what's
making
going
our
on.
plans for heading south, so I think we're sticking around till Bill's got some cataract surgery to do in September, so we're going to stick around till the end of October this year.
Oh wow.
You have anything to contribute for watching?
Okay. Well, guys, I'm going to say goodbye. It's time to get started working on bed and breakfast and other jobs here. You guys have a great week, and until next Tuesday, tack on.
Okay. Take care.
Adios. Bye-bye.
Nice seeing you, Sandy. Bye-bye.
Nice seeing all
See you,
of
Mom.
you. Bye.
All right, there we go. We did it again. That was the San Carlos Computer Club. We've been meeting as a virtual meeting since COVID, and we continue, we persist. And in October, we go back to in-person meetings where we will still broadcast it in a virtual meeting for those of you that can't join us in person. I'm Scott Stimson with International Computer Solutions. If you're looking for computer solutions out there on the internet, get a hold of me, Scott at internationalcs.net. And if you like what we did here today, well, we do have a blog. It's normally just updated with things like links to our YouTubes, but occasionally we put out some other stuff. Check out sccclub.org. Until next Tuesday, everyone out there, tech on.